And we're back at last. Welcome to episode 3 of the Year at Last podcast, a long overdue return. And today we have a Christmas special to close 2021 out with. For those watching the video version of this podcast, we'll see the Christmas jumper I got on. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Lewis Smith, community reporter for Gwent Gazette and Wales Online, and MMA journalist for MMA UK. Lewis, great to have you here. How are you doing, bud?
I'm not too bad, Rob. All the better for seeing you, my friend. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for being on, bud. So, Lou, fresh from the Cage Warriors show on the weekend, Cage Warriors Academy Wales and Ebervale. What do you think of the show? How was it?
Do you know what? It was absolutely brilliant. I actually was backstage after all the fights. We were trying to get some post-fight interviews, and there was a journalist there. I'm not 100% sure of his name, so apologies to whoever this guy is, an American bloke, and he was saying, Wales to him at the moment is kind of like the Dagestan of the West. Like, there's so many strong wrestlers and grapplers coming out of this part of the world. You saw fights between guys from Tulare Combat, Celtic Pride, absolutely amazing kind of grappling wrestling exchanges. Guys coming from the Matt Academy over in Pontypridd. And I mean, the levels at the moment for amateurs, you're seeing these guys in there, 2 and 3 fight amateurs, and they're like what you would have considered to be professional fighters 5 years ago. It's just amazing. Obviously, we got some new Cage Warriors Wales amateur champions. So I think the first one I would have to shout out would be Ian McKenzie, who fights out of Celtic Pride in Abertillery. He beat a boy from Tredegar called Kenzie Jones, bantamweights. 2 very, very talented boys, and 2 people I think, even though Kenzie lost that one, it wasn't a bad loss. He broke his hand, but he's so talented. So, it's a big future for him, even though he's taken the loss. But also, you've got to give a big shout out to Ian for getting the win. And those 2 you would definitely expect to see, I think, progressing through professional ranks in Cage Warriors. You had Rowan Crocker from Tulare Combat, who took a belt at the middleweight division. He's been out for a little while, but he looked amazing. And then you had a guy called Mitchell Good, who's now a 2-weight amateur champion. He's fighting out of Bristol, so not Welsh, but the southwest region is very kind of strong as well. So the show, I mean, it was packed out. They filled Ebervale Leisure Centre, and I mean, we were speaking before the podcast about how strong MMA is in Wales and these particular parts of the world at the moment, and I think that show really is a testament to that. It was a brilliant show. Every fight was super high level for amateurs, and I think it really bodes well for the future of Welsh MMA. And as a reporter for been doing this for a couple of years now, it's really an honor to be there and interview these guys before they, I believe, go to places like Cage Warriors and the UFC and become future stars. So yeah, I absolutely loved it, Rob, I gotta say.
I wasn't at the show myself, but I seen clips and videos through people on the socials and that, and like the production of the show looked like through the roof as well. I remember I went to one of the first shows when Pain Pit returned to Ebervale once Blaenau Gwent Council allowed shows to go there, and it was a good show. But like the production level now has just gone through the roof. Like the same venue, it's under a different promotional banner, but same promoters and that. But I could just tell from just photos that the production level of the show was just through the roof. I think a team called Showtex, sorry if I'm wrong, they look like an awesome company because they turned that venue into a world-class production, to be fair. And that's coming from someone who just seen little clips on social media stories and photos. So to be there, I imagine it'd have been even better of an experience.
Yeah, you see it on TV or on YouTube, wherever you watch it back, and you wouldn't think it's Ebervale Leisure Centre, to be fair to them. Not there's anything wrong with Ebervale Leisure Centre,
no,
but
not at all.
You just think it'd be a much more kind of glamorous venue the way they put it on. They really do a good job. I think it's a combination of things as well. I think, probably as a company, I don't know the name of the company, but you have to assume the more shows, as the sport becomes more popular, they do more shows, they get better at putting them on. You've got guys like Richard Shaw from, I've been saying Tulare Combat until now, but my apologies, it's not Tulare Combat anymore, it's Shaw Mixed Martial Arts. So you've got him, and he's been putting on shows for years now, so you'd only assume he's getting better at it. And I think it's getting to that point now where these shows are just super professional, under the Cage Warriors banner as well, which is, obviously, I'd say the best show in the UK and potentially even Europe at the moment. I just think all these factors come together. Plus, I mean, ultimately it's about the fighters on the show, but yeah, you're definitely right. You know, the levels of production we're seeing are going through the roof at the minute. And this show in particular, it was something else. You know, they had the lighting, they had the film on a big screen, which you don't usually see.
That was the first thing I noticed that caught my eye, was the big screen, and like when the fighters and their teams are posing for photos, the crowd can see what it looks like as if they was in a venue that had a big screen there. So yeah, that was one of the first things I picked on, actually, and I was like, oh God, it wasn't like this when I first watched an MMA show at Everville Centre, so it's up, doesn't it?
Shout out to the Pain Pit days, because I can remember going to watch those shows, and I mean, they were good then, but like you said, with all these boys who were, you know, doing it for so many years now, the levels have just gone up and up and up, and MMA across the country is booming at the minute, but particularly in Wales and South Wales in particular as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to touch on some more MMA in a bit, Lou, but firstly, if you don't mind, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself and how you got into journalism?
Yeah, so for me, it all started, well, as you said at the start, my job at the moment is for Wales Online. I'm a community news reporter for Wales Online, which is patch-based, so I cover the area of Blaenau Gwent and the surrounding areas. I'll do a little bit on Merthyr, Torfaen, the Philly sometimes, even Wales-wide news, but generally I'm based in Blaenau Gwent. And it was never something I intended to be doing, to be honest with you. It wasn't a job, you know, I sort of thought, you know, like a lot of journalists, they want to be journalists all their lives. For me, it was something that came gradually. I think I'd say it started for me in about 2016. I was living up in London, and I just wanted to do something different. I was working for a management consultancy firm up there, writing out CVs for people and doing a lot of boring sort of work. And I just wanted to do something creative. I can remember I didn't exactly know what I wanted to be doing. Like, I can remember thinking, oh, maybe I'll write a book, or, you know, try and make a film, or just anything sort of that was creative. And as I was thinking that, I think a couple of days later, I'd been pondering it for a while what I could do, and an advert came up on Facebook. I think it might have actually been through, because I knew Jack Shaw and some of the guys from Shaw Martial Arts. One of them had shared it. It was an advert for MMA UK, that they were recruiting people to write and do stories. Obviously, I watched every UFC event and every Cage Warriors event. I'd gone and done a little bit of training as well. And I just sent in, applied for it. Ended up speaking to a man named Peter Knox, who is the owner of MMA UK. And it kind of everything came from that. You know, I started initially writing a couple of stories. He even encouraged me to go and write sort of different story. I think I did submissions for Buzz magazine. I would do book reviews for those. I would send some stuff into Wales Online as well. Which obviously then led into me going on camera and doing the interviews. I think as I got a bit more confident with my reporting, they gave me a little bit of training and a lot of encouragement. And then, I think I was doing a little bit for Wales Online and MMA UK, and this job obviously got advertised at Reach PLC for the community news reporter. I took my chance, stuck an application in, didn't think I was going to get it, to be honest, because like I said, I wasn't trained initially as a journalist. You know, people will often spend years doing masters and degrees and really going through vigorous training. So all the training I had done had been, you know, kind of just winging it on my own, going out to MMA shows, interviewing fighters, you know, basically learning myself and trying to just figure it out as I went along. I did have great support from MMA UK and a lot of encouragement, as I said, and that really just made me more hungry to become a reporter. Wales Online took me on. I think they maybe saw that sort of drive and wanted to do it. And the rest is history, I guess. I've been there now for a good few years, and I absolutely love the job with Wales Online. You know, it's good that I get to do the MMA stuff, but there's a real sense of achievement and accomplishment reporting on the community of Blaenau Gwent, specifically because I was born and raised here. So at the moment I love what I do. You know, reporting for Wales Online, doing the bit for MMA UK, and it's all going good, but definitely not something I intended, but something I'm really enjoying.
Oh, that's an awesome story, and it is mad how some people's journey takes them to different places. How you've seen an ad for MMA UK, and then that led to you working with Wales Online, which is a national media outlet, and also coming full circle, because obviously you do the Blaenau Gwent side, and like you said, you're a Blaenau Gwent boy. So it's crazy how things sort of transpire, isn't it?
Yeah, and I should say as well, at this point, you know, for all these people who think maybe I'm a bit of a a novice at this point. Wales Online do give me good training as well now, so I am sort of officially a journalist as well. I'm not just that guy winging it anymore. I've been sort of trained by them, and really given the full training from them as well. So it's really great to have that, both sides of the official training and knowing at the same time what it's like to be out on your own, just learning on the road, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. That's brilliant. And as well, obviously, some of your articles, they come under the Gwent Gazette as well, don't they? So even though it's Wales Online, it's the Gwent Gazette. So working for the Gwent Gazette, that's got to be pretty cool, pretty nostalgic. Because obviously, as kids, not to say we're old or whatever, but when we was growing up, our media outlets was the news on telly, radio, or the newspaper. And anytime there was a local story, it'd be the Gwent Gazette. So it's pretty cool how yourself now, newspaper we all grew up not actively reading, but we was aware of, and we check out if there was any stories of interest that you're now working for. So that's got to be pretty cool as well for yourself, Luke.
It is, and it is. I can remember. I remember playing rugby a couple of years ago when I was a teenager, and you always have that start of season team picture, don't you? And it goes in the Gwent Gazette or the Argus. Yeah. So to, like you said, to be on the other side of that now and putting something together. I don't actually put the paper together. There's a print team that does that, but to see my stories in there is definitely something that it does give me a good sense of achievement, and especially like you said, when you're reporting on local people, on stories that matter to local people, that's I think what really gives me a buzz, is making a difference within the community and doing something that's hopefully a little bit positive for people around here as well.
Yeah, definitely. So you almost get now to combine both your passions, because obviously you start with MMA, and like you said, you get a sense of achievement, highlighting all the great things in the community of Blaenau Gwent, which has got a stigma as a deprived area now, and you highlight all the positive things that do happen in our community as well. So you get the best of both, and you get to combine both your passions of the community of Blaenau Gwent and MMA as well. So that's got to be pretty awesome as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like you say, Blaenau Gwent is known as a socially deprived area. Don't get me wrong, there'll be times I'll do a story and it won't be positive. The news by nature isn't always positive. A lot of it is negative. But we do what we got to do, and that kind of just makes it even nicer for me when we do get to see, like I said, someone like Jack Shaw go out and win a fight out in Vegas and look brilliant and get to do a story on that, or you get someone, I know there's a bloke called Matthew Creel down in Aberglaire. He started a mental health charity, and you get to write something like that, or so there's a Hospice of the Valleys doing a really good drive, and you get to sort of publicize them a little bit. It's kind of swings and roundabouts, and there's some good, there's some bad, but there's a lot of good as well. And when I get the chance to highlight the good, I'm always very happy.
Oh yeah, definitely awesome. Yeah, and I've obviously I follow yourself. I've come across some of your articles, and some of your articles have highlighted some real good stuff in the community, especially over this last year with the pandemic and stuff and that. But and it's brilliant. But it is nature of the beast, like you said, that the media by nature isn't always going to be positive, because with every good there's bad, and that's just the way it goes. But obviously if we all could have positive stuff all the time, we would, wouldn't we?
Yeah, there's of course, but there's a lot of amazing people up in Blaenau Gwent as well. I love doing stories about people and people who's doing amazing things and who have amazing stories. I mean, it takes a bit of research sometimes, but they're definitely around here as much as they are anywhere else. So I think there's definitely a bit of a stigma that perhaps being up here there's not as much, but they definitely is, and it's an honor really to be able to sort of promote that from the area I'm from.
Yeah, that is awesome. And like you said there's a lot of research, and that goes on nicely to my next question, which is, what is like your creative process behind writing an article or your news piece? How does it start for yourself? How do you go about creating it? And if you could elaborate on that, please.
There's a number of different ways, to be honest, Rob. There's never sort of a set way that something comes up. A lot of the time it'll be something that you just know is happening, an event. You'll speak to people and a story will come that way. Maybe you'll see something on Facebook, something on the news that'll make you think of something in the area. There's a lot of different ways it happens. It's not really a set thing. Obviously, it's my full-time job, so I get up every day and I am, sitting at the computer actively looking for stories and, trying to come up with good stories for the area. So it is a lot of research, but it's good. It's time well spent. Do you know what I mean? It's not ever a chore. It depends. Like I said, that obviously it's nice when someone rings me up and says, Lewis, we've got an amazing story here, and it falls into your lap. There's nothing better than that. But sometimes, you got to do a bit of digging. You've got to do a little bit of thinking as well. And I think it's just putting in the hours. There's no set way. It's a lot of different ways these stories come about. But I mean, I think probably the biggest thing I could say right now is social media is a huge game changer for journalism. It's an amazing tool to have to be able to search and contact people as well and connect with people. Like I said, we've got, as I'm sure every news outlet, a lot of Facebook pages that we use to show our work and speak to people. And yeah, I think that would probably be the biggest game changer. Maybe old school journalists would say from then and now. But I don't know if that really answers your question or if I've just waffled on a little bit there. But
no,
there's many avenues to get in these stories, Rob, is what I'm trying to say. Ultimately, it's just about putting the legwork in sometimes.
Yeah, and like you said, social media is a big tool, and like traditional media or original forms of media like newspapers, radio and stuff, and news outlets on television have evolved with the times, haven't they? And kept that form relevant. And I think there is always a place for like writing an article. I imagine through your training and how you sort of now take sort of pride in how you produce a written article, whereas like other than that, you would have been just doing it through the forms of technology and social media, through Zoom or with a mic and a camera. So you sort of get to do all the different forms of journalism, don't you? You get to sit down and actually research and write an article, but you also get to talk to people on Zoom, be at an event live with a microphone and that. So you get a sort of a bit of everything, don't you, really?
Yes, the game has changed. From what I've heard, like I said, I'm compared to people, you've got people at Wales Online with 20 odd years behind them. So compared to them, I really am a young gun and a rookie, really, compared to a lot of them. But the game has definitely changed. I think like you can't just sit and write now. You've got to be able to do a bit of everything. I think take pictures, take video, speak to people face to face, speak to people over Zoom. You got to be able to do a bit of everything. And to me, that's what makes it fun, because I more than anything, I love speaking to people. But to get a mixture and do a lot of different things is it's nice to break up the days and break up what you're doing a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely. So if you don't mind, Lou, I'd like to ask you about one or two articles that you've wrote in the past very recently, if you don't mind. So
let's go.
One of the first ones which is I seen you wrote an article on an individual from Blaenau called Roy Francis, who back in the day was a rugby player who went up north and made his name up in rugby league. And I come across him through a documentary a couple of years ago called Code Breakers, and then obviously in recent times now with like Black Lives Matter and celebrating like Black sporting history and that, him and other figures have come back up. And then through following yourself, I seen that you got to write a piece on him and do some research on him, and it's an incredible story, isn't it? And it's so
amazing
mad.
Story.
It's so mad that someone from Blaenau back in that era went on up north, become the first black pro coach. I mean, had a career himself in rugby league and was a hell of a player. And was ahead of his time really with everything that he'd done. I mean, what an amazing story. Is it? I know it's been a while since you've done that, but can you remember what it was like when you was researching this great man and putting that story together?
Do you know what? I spoke earlier, I said about those stories that just fall in your lap.
Yeah.
This was one of those. I actually got contacted by I got a handwritten letter posted through the door. I think it was someone, a former committee member or a fan of Blaenau RFC, and they wrote me out this letter telling me about Roy and telling me about his history in the sport, which is what led me to watch the same documentary as you did, the Code Breakers documentary, and really try and research him. A lot of the sort of stuff had been given to me in that letter, to be fair. So it was a difficult story because, when you talk about Roy, I think he was, growing up in Blaenau in the 1920s, early 1920s. So a lot of the people who sort of knew him and who would have pinned him with Blaenau are just not alive anymore. So it was difficult to find people who remembered him and find people who knew a lot about him. But luckily, I spoke to Blaenau RFC, and they put me in touch with, and I'm terrible with names, but a guy called Ian from Blaenau, who is a bit of a rugby league fanatic, and he had a lot of information and a lot of books about Roy, and he put me, in touch with a lot of detail about that, which obviously allowed me to, get some of the story done and find out a bit about Roy's history. I think he was a sergeant in the army in World War II.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
He played for Blaenau RFC.
Yeah.
I think he played for Blaenau when he was a teenager. I think he was so good after 3 or 4 games on the wing for Blaenau. I think he had a couple of tries, and he was picked up very, very early to go up to Wigan. And I mean, it shows how good he was, really, that they sort of scooped him up straight away. I think he played for Wales 5 or 6 times. He played for Great Britain. I know one of the stories I put in that article about Roy was that he actually got picked for Great Britain, went out to Australia, and Australia at the time had a colour bar, so he wasn't allowed to play for Great Britain on that tour, so he had to come home. And he didn't make his debut for Great Britain until the next year when he played against New Zealand. I think he actually scored 2 tries on his debut as well. So a very, very talented player. But I think what he was most known for was his coaching. He coached Hull. I think he had 2 of the League Cup titles, the Challenge Cup, I think it's called, in rugby league.
Yeah.
He got 2 of those. And like you mentioned yourself, he was known as being a guy who was really forward thinking coaching at that time. I know one of the experts that I quoted from a book was saying that, in terms of Welsh sport, he should be regarded alongside the great coaches, the Carwyn Jameses, people like that. So, I mean, from me, all secondhand information, of course, is not stuff that I really can comment on. But listening to what they said about this guy, I mean, he was some player and some coach. And, I mean, as you rightfully said, to have a guy like that from Blaenau, I think he was born in Cardiff, but from what I was told, he always considered Blaenau his home. And yeah, to have a guy like that is just absolutely amazing, really. I definitely think there should be some kind of commemoration to him in the town. I don't know if there's anything that could be done by the council or the club or something, but to have a guy like that, come from your hometown is definitely something worth remembering, because, as you said, he was the first black professional coach in the UK in any sport, which in itself is a huge achievement. But to be so good, winning, leagues, and I think he even went over to Australia and coached for a couple of years for North Sydney as well.
Hotbed of rugby league now, which is just like someone going to New Zealand in rugby union and cracking it. So it is amazing, isn't it? I think there definitely should be something in the town to remember Roy, because it's an incredible story, to be honest, and it's something that people of Blaenau can be very proud of, I think, now. I think more people need to be made aware of it, because there's a lot of people who are astute with the rugby history in Blaenau Gwent and probably would be hearing about Roy's story for the first time and would probably be mind-blowing that this actually existed. It is crazy, isn't it?
I think there's just a lack of knowledge, Rob. If you think, the South Wales Valleys, it's all rugby union, isn't it? So, when you talk about rugby league, I guess at Roy's time, there wouldn't have been a huge amount of interest, I wouldn't have imagined. And like you said, it's so long ago now as well. I think it's just one of those things that's unfortunately being lost to time, if you want to say that. But yeah, if we could raise awareness for it, I think it'd be brilliant. Like I said, that was my purpose with the article, was to highlight, in these times with Black Lives Matter and just the way the world is in general at the moment. There's a lot of bad news, so to have something like this and to be able to be proud of that and celebrate that, I think is amazing. Yeah,
I mean, and that Codebreakers documentary itself, without just the piece on Roy Francis, just the whole story and concept of it, it is an incredible sporting documentary, and it did get a lot of attention on that. But I feel that was something, it was much better than what it was received. I think it's something that could have won awards and stuff, because it was a brilliant sporting documentary, wasn't it? It was just brilliant, absolutely amazing.
Great to see. It's a story that not a lot of people knew.
No.
I think obviously we obviously know if you're a rugby fan, at least from South Wales, you know the divide there used to be from our parents and grandparents between rugby union and rugby league. But to hear that story in particular was very, very powerful, and I don't disagree. It was a great documentary, to be fair. I think I watched it twice.
I've watched it several times over the years. I watched it there and then during lockdown. watched it again, and it's no, it's just incredible. And speaking of commemorating, I know there was a team that made a team called Rugby Codebreakers, and they had like 13 codebreakers from Wales, and people did a vote system and narrowed it down to 3, and then whoever was chosen would get some statues in Cardiff and that. I don't think Roy made the top 3, but something in Blaenau for him. I mean, I think that'd be more, what's the word I'm looking for? More of a better show of recognition than it being in like the capital city of Cardiff or something. Because like you think of all the clubs in Blaenau Gwent, large history, but story like something like Roy's is just something next level. I know clubs in Blaenau Gwent have had Welsh internationals and stuff, but that's a next level story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's next level.
Of course. And another story I did, which I'm not sure if you saw, was a guy called David Nash, Di Nash from Blaenau, and he was actually the first Welsh rugby coach as well, the first international Welsh rugby coach. So we've got quite a history of good rugby coaching in the area. He played, I think he played for Blaenau, he played for Ebervale, played for Wales, and he played for the British Lions. And then he was the first coach, I think, I want to say in the 80s. So we've got a history of it around here. It's just that, a lot of people just don't know. The information isn't out there. So, but yeah, that's another great guy from around here, Di Nash, David Nash. Not sure what he's referred to, but apparently an Ebervale legend back in the day. As I said, Welsh international, British Lions. So yeah, there's a lot of good rugby union and rugby league players from these valleys. Yeah,
definitely. And I did want to touch on that as well, because like I do plan in the new year. One of my aims with the podcast is to do some stuff on some rugby league history, and then when I come across Roy Francis and being from Blaenau, I was just double intrigued. And when you first heard about it, you must have been a bit mind blown yourself. Like, really, wow, this is.
Couldn't believe I hadn't heard it.
Yeah, I bet you was mind blowing, wouldn't you, when you was given all the facts, and I bet got you excited then to really delve a little bit deeper and produce our story.
Yeah, well, I just couldn't wait to tell people. I just couldn't wait to report it and get that news out there that we've got this guy from our area. So yeah, like I said, you hope for things like that to come, and it's always nice when they do.
And touching on articles from more recent times, you did a piece about going to Wetherspoons and doing a sort of Super Size Me style project with Wetherspoons. So tell us about that and the thinking behind that and how that went down.
So, to be honest, I've always gone to Wetherspoons for the last couple of years, once a week for a curry and a pint with my mates. I was just speaking in the office about it one day, and we get into a little debate about do you love spoons? Do you hate spoons? I think it kind of divides opinion. And one of my editors said, well, because I was saying about all the different things on the menu, like you have the different clubs, don't you? Curry club, steak club. And I think he said, well, why don't you go there every night and see if you can do it every night of the week? At the time, it seemed like a good idea. Definitely, it didn't hurt my bank balance too much because spoons is very good priced, but I think that you can't have too much of a good thing, and I definitely wouldn't recommend going there every night if you can help it. I think for me, once a week is enough. It was a story that actually did really well. People love spoons. I think in general, they love to read about it. They love to hear about it. So the story did well. It got a lot of comments and a lot of people talking about it. A lot to my expense. People taking the mick, calling me. Well, I won't say what they were calling me, but I think with stories like that, sometimes it's just a bit of fun, isn't it?
It's like that. It's fun.
Do a challenge.
There's no harm in it.
To it. It's just to see if it can be done. And you know what? You can go there. In fairness, you can go every night and have something different. You can go there and have something different for not a price that'll break the bank, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean you should. So,
no.
I don't know if I'll be rushing to do 7 days in spoons in a row again. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I bet. Was you I don't know if you did do this. Was you tempted to vlog it and document it, almost like a YouTube style vlog, as well as putting the written piece together? Was you tempted to do that and have like your reactions when eating the food? Day 3 down, thinking,
I was right, but the truth is, I just know too many people in there, and I was just a bit embarrassed, to be sitting there talking to the camera on my own like a complete weirdo. So I ended up not going down that route and just doing the written route in the end. But yeah, I mean it was a bit of fun.
Yeah,
I've eaten everything on the spoons, man. At this point. So if anyone out there needs any spoons advice, hit me up. Don't really as a joke.
Yeah.
But
How many people can say that though, that they've like Jay in between has completed it, mate? You have completed the spoons menu.
Yeah.
They should give you some sort of award or something, like a little plaque or certificate for your efforts, because you've probably drawn some extra. Yeah. No, that's true. Draw some extra business to spoons anyway. So.
Yeah, some people go out and climb Kilimanjaro for charity. I'm just doing my bit down spoon. So
yeah, everyone else they say. So yeah, what has been one of your favorite articles you've done over the years, Lou? I know it's probably hard to pick one, but one that comes to mind right away that you enjoy doing it is a favorite of yours.
There's a lot. I think that's a difficult one to call, Rob. I think one of my first stories at Wales Online was a story about a mosque in Blaenau. Just because the nature of my role, I want to give a voice to people who maybe don't necessarily have it, underrepresented communities. Blaenau Gwent as a whole, I feel, is a little bit underrepresented. So, I guess just by reporting stuff in Blaenau Gwent, I feel like I am meeting that brief. But to then find a really niche and small minority community within that area, I felt it was really important to sort of go and give them a bit of a voice to tell people who they are, what they're doing. And I absolutely love that story. So I think the title is The Only Mosque in the Valleys. We got down there a couple of times and spoke to the people in Baraya Masjid, it's called. We got some amazing photos, some amazing interviews. And it really was eye-opening. Like I said, it's always great to meet people of different faiths and cultures, and have that in your kind of own doorstep, really, but not know about it, I think is something that I wanted to put out there. So that would definitely be one of my favorites. I did a similar one, again, maybe not a lot of people know, but there's a Buddhist temple up in Blaenau on King Street. So I went and spoke to those guys as well. Again, it's nice just to know the different kind of people that live around you, because sometimes we tend to get in these little bubbles of our friendship and family and not necessarily be aware of who else is around us. So those two were definitely great. I love all the MMA stories I do, because it's my favorite sport. I speak to the fighters regularly, so any chance to publicize them is something I love. And the last one that comes to my mind that I would mention, I can't remember where I was. I was randomly in Six Bells one day, and I spoke to a counsellor, and he just happened to mention that he was a former naval officer, and he'd been witness to the first ever nuclear bomb that got detonated.
Wow.
I think it was Christmas Island, something like that. I can't remember the exact details of the story, but yeah, he was a naval officer, and he'd been stood on the ships as they detonated the first bomb with his hands over his eyes, and he was telling me about how he kind of even with his eyes shut and his hands over his eyes, he could see the bones in his hands.
Wow.
And that really captured my imagination, and I went and interviewed him twice, I think, and did a lot of research on kind of the history of nuclear testing and the stuff the British and the Americans were doing out in the South Pacific, and that really interested me. That was a really eye-opening article, I suppose, in some ways, that what these guys went through at that time, just after World War II. And yeah, he kind of gave me a great story, and again, it's a local person who's super interested in that. If you wouldn't, just him being in Six Bells chatting randomly one day, you wouldn't have ever known. So yeah, that was another good story, and I really like that one. So those are probably some of my highlights. The religious ones that I went to is a counsellor named Denzel from Six Bells. So he was the guy. Yeah, a great conversation with him, and then obviously the MMA stories as well is something that always gets me going.
We don't know what's on our doorstep, do we? Which is probably the beauty of your job. You get to highlight it.
Yeah.
We really don't, do we? And for you, it
true.
must be awesome to make all these discoveries, no matter how they come, whether that's through a conversation with a random person or through the information secondhand. It must be awesome, Luke, to be fair, because we don't realize what is on our doorstep. And I'll be honest, if I didn't know you from like back in the day and then see your journey for your articles, I probably wouldn't have come across this stuff as well. And then that makes it even more awesome as well, because it's like wow, this is all going on in this area, this borough that we live. It's awesome, isn't it? To be fair, there's no other way around it. It's just, you just don't know what's around the corner, do you?
No, exactly. And I think it actually came up. I'd gone down to Six Bells. There'd been a car crash or an accident or something that they'd asked me to go down and just double check on. And it was this guy Denzel who was there, and we started chatting, and that we ended up talking a bit too long, and that's how the story came about. So again, I suppose that goes back to how do I generate my stories, is sometimes just going out in the community and speaking to people. It sounds like kind of a basic thing, but yeah, a lot. I guess that's where probably my best stories come from, is going out and having random conversations with people. Really.
Oh, that's awesome. And also, speaking on the Buddhist place in Blaenau as well, I followed that article, and I never knew what it looked like inside. And when you shared the images and videos of what it looked like inside, it's just mind blowing that inside this big yellow building it's like a museum, isn't it? It's like a museum in like one of the foreign countries that you go and visit. Everything just looks so like precious and like valuable and stuff. It's just amazing. I was like, wow, that's what's inside there all this time. Like, I didn't expect it to look like it did. And it's like, you talk about aesthetically pleasing. It is an amazing facility, and it's just the way it's designed and everything, and the furniture and ornaments in this. Is it pretty awesome, isn't it, to be fair?
It's beautiful. If you go in there, it's really beautiful. It's run by a guy called Lama Rabsang. I think he's from Nepal, and he moved over here, and he absolutely loves it in Wales now. He considers Wales his home. He loves it. He loves the people, loves the vibe of the valleys. So yeah, it was great. I mean, I got to go up there, sit in on some of the meditation sessions, which are super relaxing, and I guess enlightening is the word. You go up there and really clear your head. I saw people who go up there for weeks at a time to sort of get away and retreat, and yeah, they're lovely people in there, really welcoming. It was a great story to do. So yeah, like you said, you might not necessarily think that's there in Blaenau, but it is, and it's lovely. And I don't know if actually it's open at the moment because of COVID, but I mean, it's definitely worth checking out if you get a chance.
Yeah, 100%, regardless of whether you've got no interest in culture, religion, just to see that facility and that it is just awesome. It is aesthetically pleasing, a beautiful facility, definitely. Getting on now to the juicy bit, your favorite bit, MMA now to finish, Lou. So
yeah, let's go for it.
How many years now have you been covering the sport of MMA?
I want to say, well, I've been watching it for years. I can't even remember how long. I think probably before UFC 100, I've been watching it. So a long time I've been watching it. In terms of covering it, I want to say around 2016. Like I said, I saw that advert. I think one of the boys from Shaw's Mixed Martial Arts had posted it, and I replied and started speaking to the MMA UK owner, Peter Knox, and it kind of spiraled from there. So I around, where are we now? Around 6-7 years for MMA. And yeah, I mean, it's gone quite fast, to be honest with you, Rob. It's one of those things, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? So really enjoyed it, and it's gone in the blink of an eye, I'd say.
Yeah, have you noticed the growth of MMA, but also the disciplines that come along with it, such as like jiu-jitsu and grappling and that over the years? How have you noticed the growth and rise of these sports, both locally and nationwide through covering it?
Yeah, I suppose it's popularity by association, really, isn't it? You look at a show like Cage Warriors, for example. They did a big show about 2 years ago with Jack Shaw headlining down in the Ice Arena, and they paired up with a company called Polaris Grappling. I think they did like one of the options was that you buy 2 tickets, you get 2 tickets for Polaris on the next night for free. I know that card had a lot of Welsh MMA talent on it, so it kind of mixed pure grapplers with people like Brett Johns, with people like Liu Long, who were Bellator and UFC competitors. So people want to see them as well, even if they're not grappling fans specifically. They'll go to see those MMA competitors grappling, and then I think a lot of the times you see a really entertaining grappling match. If you like that kind of thing in MMA, you're gonna love it as it is. So it's got that's a sport of its own, which is growing I can't say off the back of MMA because it is, very popular. There's a lot of people who love it, just want to watch jiu-jitsu and these kind of shows. But I think that the rise in popularity of MMA definitely has had an effect on that. Those guys, Polaris, they put on some amazing shows, and I think they had Luke Rockhold over in a show in Celtic Man a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, isn't it? The UFC champion they come into the Celtic Man in Wales to grapple. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I actually went to a show in Evervale a couple of months ago, Stand Up War, which is hosted by Stephen Giffard down at Celtic Pride. I'd never seen a full Thai boxing or kickboxing show before, and I absolutely loved it, to be honest with you. It was a great atmosphere. And again, a sold out Evervale Sports Centre, 1,100 people there. So I think combat sports generally is on the rise. Even, you talk about boxing when you have a big boxing match. We've always sort of known in the valleys people like to watch a big boxing match, but I think that's even more evident now. You even see like Jake Paul fighting and Tommy Fury, and people will be talking about it. So
100%.
Yeah, I think MMA has been the driving factor, in my opinion. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but it's something that's growing right across the UK. And you look at the gyms that are popping up now and the talent that's starting to develop. I think it's only going to get bigger as we get more stars. That next Conor McGregor is only just around the corner. With the amount of talent you've got, you get the right guy, a guy like Oban Elliott who can fight and who can talk. It's only a matter of time, I think, before you get that next big guy who pushes it onto another level again. So yeah, I've noticed all of these kind of combat sports really sort of pushing on, and so you're seeing a lot more promotions popping up, which is great.
Yeah, and like the Polaris, Cage Warriors, and others, and the stand-up promotion as well. Like for both local and national shows. I mean, from like production to like their logo, their banner, the way they promote the event, and that it's all really good and really impressive, to be fair. And that just shows the growth that, and like we touched on at the very beginning, a local show in Evervale, such professional production. You wouldn't think you was at a local show in South Wales. Do you know what I mean? The production was next level. It was excellent, wasn't it? So it shows how big the rise is.
I think the amount of fans you have. The amount of fans you have in attendance is a testament to that. You get people coming from right across the country to see those shows in Evervale. Dan Hardy was there on Saturday with some of his team members. I think the last card, I'm sure I saw one of the UFC refs, Leon. I can't think of his surname now, but Leon was judging. These people are coming for a reason, and that's because it's a good show with a great production. And great talent on as well, and it's like you said, it's only going to get bigger as they keep getting better. Cage Warriors, the top end of the Cage Warriors brand, they do an amazing job. They really have proven themselves as a pathway onto the UFC. I think 100 odd fighters have gone from Cage Warriors to the UFC now from across all over the world, really. And yeah, that's filtered down, into the kind of local amateur cards.
Yeah, definitely. And Cage Warriors alumni is just next level with the fighters that's gone on to the UFC and stuff. So have you got any cool or interesting stories in your time covering MMA, experiences that you've had going to these different shows, whether they be major or local shows that you could share that's been awesome for you and has been like sort of fanboyed out or whatever?
Do you know what? Every moment for me, Rob, is a fanboy moment. I love watching it so much when you get to go to these places. I remember a couple of years ago, it was actually at a Polaris show. Me and my friend Dan, who comes with me to film, we were going backstage, and Benson Henderson, former UFC champ, had just lost and was kind of sprinting up and down the corridor in the back. And our interview camera was in the room behind where he was running. And both of us were too afraid to ask him to move out of the way. So yeah, I mean, in terms of stories, like every moment for me being around these guys, I've been out to. I got very fortunate to get out to Japan and watch one championship. Obviously, those guys put on we talk about production value. They put on a next level production over there. I really can't say enough good things about those guys. I was lucky enough to get over there and watch. I think it was a car with Eddie Alvarez. Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Wow.
And get to interview those guys, people who you just look up to and watch for so many years. You know, a guy like Mighty Mouse, who was one of the most dominant UFC champions there's ever been.
Yeah.
Eddie Alvarez, you know, a Bellator champion. He's a UFC champion. You know, just being in the company of these guys and interviewing them in itself is, you know, something that I feel really privileged to be able to do, and something I want to do a lot more of, to be honest. Like, I feel like we've missed a couple of years now with COVID where we've not been able to travel, and that's something that, you know, I really wanted to get out to Vegas for a card and, you know, do a bit more traveling with the shows. So we've missed out on it for the last 2 years, really, because we've not been able to go. So it's definitely something that hunger is still there to do, and, you know, make more memories in the future with it.
What was you doing in that time then? Just writing stories and interviewing fighters through Zoom? Because obviously there was an event, and I guess in any events it was limited as to who can attend. So was you just limited to Zoom interviews about fighters in camp, preparing in bubbles and stuff like that?
That was it. We couldn't go to any shows. Obviously, Cage Warriors was no press. There were no Cage Warriors was, I think, the only show that was going ahead in the UK at that time. They were doing the triple headers, weren't they?
Yeah, in your call, yeah.
So there was no local shows at all. I think there might have been one or two, but nothing we could really get to. So yeah, it was not. I mean, I think I did a couple of the Fight Island boys, Jack Shaw, John Phillips, before they fought over Zoom. But like you said, it really did put a dampener on it. I think the week before COVID, we were meant to have UFC London, and it was going to be, I can't remember. I think the main event was going to be Darren Till. I can't remember who he was going to be fighting, but the co-main was Jack Marshman. I remember, you know, writing all these articles, got my press pass ready, had a pile of stuff ready, like to do live blogs on the night at Cage Side. It was Cage Warriors the next night in the Indigo. I think Mason Jones was going to be fighting for the title that night against Joe McColgan. And UFC pulled out. They couldn't fight. So we missed out on that. And then Cage Warriors got moved to Manchester, and there was no press or audience in attendance. So missed some brilliant shows in person there with that. And like you said, it's a really bitter pill to swallow sometimes when you, like you said, you spend money on hotels and you prepare yourself, you get the time set aside to go, and then it gets pulled. But ultimately, look, we had a pandemic. It was nothing that could be done. You know, it was a bad time. Still is in many ways. You know, with people getting sick, and I mean that's, I suppose, the worst thing about it is people being unwell. And really MMA is just a sport when you look at it in that sense. So it was gutting, but you can't complain too much.
One thing I thought you was going to share, which I was going to ask you about anyway, was the time that you got to ask a question at Q&A at UFC Fight Night London, when I think it was Bisping, Dan Hardy and Paige Van Zandt was on the stage. And you obviously represented for Wales, and I was asking right away, with Wales being a hotbed, when do you think a major show would come? And the answer that I think you got was brilliant. And from that, I did a bit of like a timeline research. So obviously that was UFC Fight Night London. I think it was Verdum and Volkov, fighting on the card. I don't even know if that's the poster of that event in the background behind you. If that is the poster of that event, is it not?
No, is that's UFC Copenhagen. That's
Copenhagen, right? Yeah. But anyway, that was in March 2018 that you asked that, and Bisping said a very awesome answer where he said that when he was approached to fight Dan Henderson in a rematch back in the UK, he had the option between the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff or fighting in Manchester, and obviously he picked Manchester. And when he fought Dan Henderson, that was back in October 2016. So it goes to show that how long having a UFC event has been on the radar in Wales for the UFC. Because if you think they had the chance to, they contemplated going there back in 2016. We're in 2021 now. And it shows how long it's been waiting to come. And I think it's years sooner than we think.
I hope so. I mean,
the talent.
We've been waiting a long time. Haven't we? That's the thing. It's one of those, you want to think it's just around the corner, but you just never know. From what I've been told by a lot of sort of higher up people, is that there's not the right type of venue in Wales for UFC at the moment. Obviously to bring someone to the Millennium Stadium, you'd be looking, 75,000 people like the shows they've had in Australia. it's going to take a hell of a card to bring that to Wales. You know, you'd be looking at like a Khabib McGregor or John Jones, Francis Ngannou to sell that amount of tickets. I think it's going to be hard to fill the stadium for that. You know, and I think the other issue then would be the time difference between us and the United States. I know when Bisping fought in Manchester, that card was, I think we went to that at about 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, just to make up the time difference for people watching back in the States. So I think there are a lot of sort of different things, and then, you know, you've got to have different permits to be able to have, you know, people walking the streets in huge numbers at that time of the night. So I think there's definitely challenges. And then, you know, is there another kind of mid-tier venue in Cardiff or Swansea that could fit, you know, 10, 15,000 people? I don't know if there is. So that's what I've been told is one of the main sort of issues. But what I know as well is that they are building that kind of venue in Swansea right now. They've got the designs and the plans to build one. I think it's going to be a 15 or 16,000 seater. So, you know, something like that could be the trigger point for a UFC Wales. At the moment, we're the only country in the UK that hasn't had one. You know, they've had it in Belfast, they've had it in Dublin. I know that's not in the UK, but, you know, it's close by. They've had Glasgow a couple of times, Liverpool, Manchester, London.
We're just waiting, aren't we?
We're just waiting. We're the next on the list. Like I said, they have London every year, which is a great show up in the O2, to be fair. But you want to get that UFC in Wales, and you know, have the likes of Jack Shaw, Corey McKenna, Mason Jones are, you know, our big stars getting out there and fighting in front of a home crowd. I think people would really get behind them. You know, for me, I'd love to see it go to the Ice Arena in Cardiff. We saw Cage Warriors go there. I don't see any reason you couldn't have a smaller UFC show and do a fight night there, because I'm sure they've done like UFC Boise in America with like 3,000 people in attendance before. So to me, I don't see why not. But then, you know, I'm not Dana White and the UFC making the decisions, and also I'm Welsh, so but yeah, I think I'd like to see it in the Ice Arena, but doesn't look like it's happening at the moment. So my next hope is that the arena gets completed in Swansea over the next couple of years, and perhaps we can get something in there. You know, the only other option is that we get like a huge, like Jack Shaw becomes the champion or Mason Jones becomes the champion, and we get like a huge card in the Millennium Stadium off the back of one of those. You know, that's the next best option.
Even a title challenge or anything like that, or the champion's a big mainstream name. But I always wonder what if, because when Bisping said that, I was very surprised that they thought about Cardiff. I don't mean that in a negative way, because obviously I'd have thought, well, it's Manchester only if it's the UK for him then. But I'd love to have seen how that event would have been received. I think it would have been a great event, but I mean, I just always wondered how that would have been at Cardiff and then what would have happened off the back of that with it being in Cardiff and that. Not that Wales has needed something like that, because what Wales has built from the ground up in MMA is amazing. But I do always ponder that hypothetical situation if they give the green light and put that event in the Millennium Stadium, what would have been, how it would have transpired as an event, not necessarily the fight itself, and then the aftermath of something like that being in Cardiff at an amazing stadium like Principality.
I think what Bisping said was that the deciding factor in that ultimate was that he's from Manchester, and he you know, his fan base is in Manchester, so he wanted to be there, which makes perfect sense. Yeah, like we've had big fights in Cardiff. You know, I remember Joe Calzaghe fighting in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, and
Mikel Kessler,
obviously Anthony Joshua's been there a couple of times in the last year and put on amazing shows with the roof closed. So I mean, it's a great venue for it. I just don't know if maybe they've got the, how can you say it? They've got the right card to sell it out. Perhaps, you know, that many people.
It'd have to be a global card, wouldn't it, with fighters from different parts of the world with mainstream followings that can bring everyone there, and then you have the Welsh talent combined with that. Then I think that's the perfect recipe. So one day, Lou, we hope. One day. Yeah,
like I said, we live in hope, Rob. We live in hope, but you know, it's optimistic when you do see as well. Like, you know, they're doing a lot of cards in Abu Dhabi now, big super cards really, and three-day events and things like that. So they are coming outside of America a little bit more by the looks of it, and I think it's optimistic for us, but you just never know, do you?
No, you never know, Lou. Lou, that's pretty much everything I want to cover. I appreciate your time. We've been talking for an hour now, and it's been great and it's flown by. So just to finish, Lou, for anyone who wants to find you, check out your stories you're covering, whether that's within the community or with MMA UK. Where can they find you? Any plugs you want to plug, whether that's socials or websites or anything like that?
I'm on Facebook. I've got my reporters page, which is just Lewis Smith.
Mm-hmm.
There's a picture of me looking lovely in a pink shirt on there, I believe. And then on Twitter I'm Lewis_Wales ONL, and that's about it. I think, Rob. I'm not that great on Twitter. I'm more active on Facebook than I'm on Twitter, so probably best to follow me there. But yeah, give me a follow if you want to see some local stories from Wales and across obviously the South Wales valleys. And if you want to get in touch with me about a story as well, just drop me a line. Yeah,
definitely. For anyone listening now, once again, touch Lewis for a story. There will be links in the description. Thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks to Lewis for coming here now. It's been someone I wanted to get on for a while. A story of someone doing something well from a local area and highlighting great things in the community and covering the great sport of MMA. So Lou, thank you very much for your time today. And for anyone who wants to follow myself, you can find me on all socials here at Last Pod. Lou, thank you very much for the time. It's been great chatting to you.
No, thanks for having me, Rob.
All the best.
Thank you, buddy.